All right. Pumped to do this here, Adam. I see a few familiar names joining here. Jason Kulski, good to see you. Mary, I'm not going to try your last name, Mary Kay, but it's good to see you here as well. Let's see here, who else? Who else do I know?
I think we're going to get the entire Part Solutions team is going to show up here in a second.
Awesome, good stuff. Well, seemed like we had some good interaction on LinkedIn from some people that seem to be planning to join, but hey, you never know with a webinar if it's gonna.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it being recorded. We'll get it to everybody.
Yep, you bet.
So behind me, I used to have this big cool whiteboard on the wall. And then last year when no one was in the office got like so hot that it delaminated and fell off the wall. So now I just got a big blank wall behind me. I need to get some posters or something back there now that we're repopulating the office.
Yeah, big white wall is not the worst thing behind you.
No, it could be
nobody, worse. This behind me looks like a sweet brick wall, and it's actually wallpaper. Don't tell. All right, we got Ann Wyatt joining from Industry 4.0 Club. What's going on, Ann? Watching some people pour in here. So what's the weather in the Cincy area today?
It is pretty muggy. We're about 80s and about 80% humidity.
Yeah, that sounds about here. I think we might be in the 90s, but that's what you get in St. Louis in the summer. So I guess I signed up.
Yep.
How many registrants did we get in?
116 or something last time I checked.
That's great.
Yeah.
See how many show, huh? Getting a good crowd pouring in, looks like. So.
Yeah, we'll give them a couple minutes.
Good.
All right, what do you think, Joe? Should we get this going?
I say let's do it. Yeah. Once you.
All right. We're at 1 after. We gave everybody a free minute.
Cool.
All right. So welcome everyone to how to create great prospecting and follow-up emails. 6 email marketing tips for manufacturers and B2B companies. We'll start off with a little housekeeping. How to ask a question. There's a questions pane on your go-to window. Type them in there, and we'll keep an eye on them, but we're going to try to address all those at the end. We will also be sending a follow-up with the slides and the recording of this. So if that's your question, we got you covered. And let's get into it. So our agenda is we're going to have some quick introductions, talk about the problem. Then we'll show some prospecting emails, some bad ones, some good ones. Same thing with follow-up emails. Then we'll have a quick summary and open it up to Q&A. So my name is Adam Beck. I'm the Director of Marketing here at CADENAS Partsolutions. Those of you who don't know us, we help manufacturers provide shareable content like engineering data, CAD and BIM files, configurable PDF data sheets, and 3D previews.
Awesome. And I'm Joe Sullivan. I'm a co-founder of the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76. We're a 20-person company based in St. Louis. Been around for about 15 years, and what we really do is work with mid-sized B2B manufacturers to help them build modern marketing programs that are focused on business outcomes, marketing source pipeline, rather than the traffic and leads and rankings and all the things that are important leading indicators, but we help companies build programs that produce meaningful results. And then I also host a podcast called The Manufacturing Executive, which some of you on here I know at least are familiar with. But yeah, I'm excited to do this, Adam.
Yeah, thank you for joining. So let's talk about the problem a little bit. Inboxes are crowded. People say people aren't opening emails because we get too many emails, and it's like a snowballing problem. But prospecting emails are being ignored, follow-up emails are falling flat, and sales emails are not guiding the audience. We see them every day in our inbox. So there is a better way, but spoiler, it's about the effort at the end of the day. The inspiration for this came from, we were doing an internal training session on a similar topic, how to write better emails, and I serendipitously got Joe's email, and I was like, yes, we're on the same page. Let's team up on this and go. So let's get to it. Joe, your first email.
Yeah, so let's start out by here's an email that you probably all got in your inbox today. It's something that looks like this, right? It's your typical bad email, bad prospecting email that we're kind of all used to seeing. I'm just going to read this. This is a screenshot out of a blog post I wrote, I think a year ago or so, that kind of prompted some of this stuff. But typical subject line, hypothetical email here. Sullivan Automation Inc. provides the absolute best in manufacturing facility automation, ! And then the body copy goes on to read, Bill, I'm Joe from Sullivan Automation, where we specialize in a wide range of custom manufacturing automation services, including controls and automation design, robotic systems, automation engineering, fabrication, system testing, blah, 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 blah. At Sullivan Automation, we strive to achieve customer satisfaction by serving as an extension of our customers' businesses and providing unprecedented customer service like none other in the industry. We hope we can serve you. Please call us to request a quote, Joe. This might be a little dramatic, or extreme, but frankly, this is kind of the typical prospecting email you get. And so we're going to talk here in a second, I think, about what.
It's not that bad compared to some I've gotten.
Yeah, seen worse. I have seen worse. At least this one is the grammar is right, and there's not random all caps and highlighted stuff highlighted in green and yellow and red. And we're going to see one of those shortly, I think, too. But this is typical, right? And so let's talk about what's wrong with it. So we kind of pointed out 5 things here. So up in the top right, you've got a loud subject line. It's all about the sender instead of about the recipient, right? Sullivan Automation Inc. provides the absolute best in manufacturing facility automation. Why does that matter to the recipient, right? Nobody cares about you. Okay, number 2, over in the left here, no connection to a likely pain, goal, or common question. As I just said, your prospects care about themselves, not you, at least right now, right? So kind of just missing the boat there. And I like to say about email subject lines, like, if you can't get somebody to open your email, they're never going to see what's on the inside anyway. And so that first one I think is really key. I think we're going to talk about that
subject line, not to interrupt you, but that's a long subject. So you got to make sure they're in widescreen mode to see the first half of that to get to the absolute best part. Otherwise, they're not even going to see what may pertain to them.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I came up through sort of advertising. I went to school for visual communications, and my first job was in advertising in more of a traditional sense. And there are times where we had to write billboard ads, right? Like out of home billboard ads that you see on the highway. And the rule of thumb I think was always like 7 or 8 words, right? And I think it's kind of similar for a email subject line. Like you have just a split second to get their attention, and they're not going to see what's on the inside if you can't compel them to open it, and they're not going to be compelled to open it if it's just something all about yourself. So that's kind of the point there. Number 3, over on the right side, long lists of capabilities that just say I'm another generalist. So one of the biggest problems I see when we're consulting manufacturers is that everybody serves a variety of verticals and does a variety of things and has big customers and small customers and a range of products and services. But especially in a prospecting email setting, think about who your recipient is, and rather than listing a long list of things you could be doing for them, who is that person? What do they care about? And what are you really good at doing? What problems do you really help solve for them? So I think the long lists of this is all the stuff we do, hoping that something sort of strikes a chord is not the right way to go here. 4, generic lip service that creates no value for the prospect. That's kind of that second to last paragraph here. You see so much copy like this. We strive to achieve customer satisfaction by serving as an extension of our customers' businesses. Unprecedented customer service. This stuff may be true about you. It's probably true for a lot of your companies, but it doesn't mean anything to anybody until they've experienced it. And as a result, it's just not a differentiator when you talk about it. It's something you need to demonstrate, and this could be copied and pasted, frankly, from anybody. So you just got to kind of think about that. What actually differentiates you that you could hit on first when you're kind of trying to compel someone to have a conversation. And then the 5th one assumes that the recipient has a need right now. Like, this is one of the biggest mistakes I see in sales is everybody's being treated like they are bottom of funnel, as if they're ready to buy something. Yet a lot of the companies I serve they're dealing with businesses that have long sales cycles, committees of buyers, CapEx equipment. These are not decisions you make on the fly. You don't just go to a sales call from it. So we'll talk about later today and in this email of ways to sort of get to not be so sales heavy on it, but to try to establish a relationship, build some credibility, build some trust before you kind of go straight to the, hey, let's talk about buying the thing we sell, right?
100%. I mean, like you're saying about number 4 there, that's just not quantifiable to say what you can't say that you're honest. You have to prove that you're honest, or whatever that is at the end of the day. So that sentence means, like you're saying, absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. So good stuff. Let's look at the good one.
Cool. All right. So listen, I'm not the world's foremost expert in prospecting emails. I run an industrial marketing agency, but this is the kind of stuff that we do with success. So I'm going to read it first, and then we'll again talk about why I made the decisions to write the things I wrote in here. So email subject line: 5 ways to reduce downtime and the Milwaukee Bucks. Bill, notice you're a Milwaukee native. I grew up close by in Wauwatosa. Fingers crossed that Giannis and the Bucks can bring this thing home now that the NBA is officially starting back up. I think I wrote this a year ago. Number 1 question plant managers at automotive manufacturing facilities ask me is this: what things can I be proactively doing to prevent equipment failure on the plant floor? I want to pass along an article our crew at Sullivan Automation just published titled 5 Ways to Reduce Downtime in Your Manufacturing Facility. I'm confident you'll find some thought-provoking nuggets in there. Would it be valuable to have a quick chat about how I see other plant managers in the automotive space putting some of these things into practice? Joe. Again, this is just hypothetical. I'm writing this as if I were a part of a manufacturing organization. Okay, so breaking this one down a little bit. So number 1, top right, concise subject line focuses on the things this person likely cares about. Here's the thing: if you know your audience well and you're tightly focused on a specific buying process influencer from inside the type of company that you're really good at serving already, you know what kind of things matter to them. Or if you don't, then we got to go back and do some customer research and interviews and voice of customer work and collect that stuff. But if you know the things that these people care about because you hear it directly from their mouths regularly, because you've gathered these things through customer interviews, then you put that stuff at the forefront, and that needs to be in your email subject line, in my opinion, because it's what's gonna get them to open it. Okay, number 2, 5 minutes of research on LinkedIn lets you humanize yourself through a common connection, interest, or geography. So in this case, I grew up in Milwaukee. I live in St. Louis now. I grew up in Milwaukee. This screenshot was pulled from a blog post I wrote last year where I used this as an example. The NBA was just starting up again, after it shut down for COVID, and if you're from Milwaukee, you were excited that the Bucks were like actually good, right? Which is not something we're used to as Milwaukee Bucks fans. But so, I'm trying to just touch on how do you build a personal connection? Okay, this person has something in common with me, potentially. And so I don't think you should force fit it. I think that sometimes you see that happening and it just feels inauthentic. But if you could make a connection there, doesn't have to be geography or sports or whatever, but 5 minutes of research on somebody's LinkedIn profile or just Google searching them, seeing if they've got a profile of themselves on their company website or whatever, I think it can go a long way. Maybe there's somebody in common that or you've worked with or something, but use that stuff to your advantage to just humanize yourself and make it clear that you haven't just canned this thing, right? So that's that point. Number 3, highlight a common issue for somebody in this role. So, the one I used here was the number 1 question plant managers at automotive manufacturing facilities ask me is this: what things can I proactively be doing to prevent equipment failure on the plant floor? Again, you know what those things are. If you know this buyer, you know this persona, then you know what these things are. And so let's connect to the pain they're feeling or the goal they're trying to accomplish or the thing they're trying to do in their daily job. And this is going to be different if you're talking to a plant manager versus, some kind of engineer or a CFO or a CEO. So you got to think about who the recipient is here. And of course, this doesn't necessarily work when you're mass emailing a bunch of people, but I'm kind of advocating for a more personalized approach here anyway. Number 4, value is created for the prospect by offering a genuinely helpful resource. So the one we did here is we said, okay, we wanted to pass along an article our crew wrote titled 5 Ways to Reduce Downtime in Your Manufacturing Facility. This is like my favorite thing to do in the sales process, whether it's more of a cold email or I do it more often in a follow-up conversation where, when we're going to get to that one later. So actually I won't go really into that much yet, but look at, if you're talking about a pain that this type of person is typically feeling from all your experiences, like that's the stuff you need to create content around. So if you don't have that content, there's the cue for your content strategy. And if you've got something, whether it's an article you've written like the example I used here, or a recording from a webinar like this, like if I felt like there's somebody who could be using email marketing but didn't, but they don't, or I had a conversation with somebody about we're missing an opportunity with existing customers because all we do is talk about trade shows and our trade shows we're going to in our emails or whatever. Like I would use a recording from this webinar and just send it to them. Say, hey, we just did a big session on how to better use email as a manufacturer. Here's a link to the recording. So it could be anything. It could be but create value is kind of the purpose here. And then number 5, short, non-aggressive, unassuming ask, offering a conversation that will also deliver value. This is my style, okay? So I think different salespeople have different styles. What kind of things work and what things fall flat. But when you've got great content to send and value to create, then you don't have to be as blatant about like I want to have a sales call with you. So the way I positioned it here, would it be valuable to have a quick chat about how I see other plant managers in the automotive space putting some of these things into practice. It's low risk, low barrier. You're indicating that you're going to continue to create value for this person here, as opposed to going in with a hard sell. So that's kind of the summary there.
Yeah, to me, the only sales emails I have opened probably in the last year use your Milwaukee Bucks type thing. If they referenced where I went to school, or they read an article that I wrote or something else, and they commented on that, and we're starting from sort of a common place. It's not just, I know that they did a little bit of 1% of research on me, and that's all it takes, but it just shows there's a little bit more there than the canned email. And then your non-aggressive ask, I like it. Even it's not pushy, and I don't want to engage with somebody that's going to be pushy. If you're going to be asking for the sale on the first email, oh my gosh, I can only imagine how the rest of the sales process is going to go. So yeah, I think it's great. Now, so Joe showed a couple, like I said, that we've seen worse, and I have a real one. I have a real email that I received. It's been anonymized to protect the innocent, but I will read it to you and we'll get into some of my thoughts. I'm sure Joe has some thoughts too. So subject, generate B2B marketing leads. Hello, I hope you are safe and well. Our research team figured out that you are a B2B company. I'm wondering if you might be interested in our proprietary email marketing service to generate leads for your business. Now you must be wondering what's proprietary about it. We churn out data directly from search engines using our in-house custom data extraction technology and use generic email addresses like Gmail, Outlook, iCloud to send emails and track 100,000 plus inboxes. You can save up to 75% compared to other marketing avenues, 5x better results. Much cheaper than AdWords, instant results as compared to SEO, better lead quality, immediate turnaround time, 1 week paid trial. If this does not make sense, what does? Guaranteed results or 100% money back. Please let me know if the above mentioned information interests you so we can discuss further. Look forward to hear from you soon. Thanks and regards. Oh my gosh, all the things. They did them all in one email. So starting at the top, I mean, that subject says nothing. I literally get 20 emails with this a day, trying to sell me lists or other whatever. I'm sure you get the same, Joe. It's addressed to no one. They didn't even go as far as to figure out my name. So they just sent it to hello. Now, this opener was okay last year. I mean, when we were in the throes of COVID and we were trying to be empathetic or being empathetic, whatever that is, it's a fine thing. I hope you are well and safe has run its course. Do you have thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, that one got old about, I don't know, March 7th of last year, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So then they go into the about us. So our, I, we, they say they cover all of the pronouns referring to themselves. And I'm still haven't seen value. And now we get to the formatting nightmare. I did not reformat any of this. This is how it came. So it's got normal font, bold with red, then a bulleted list, which 2 through 6 are highlighted in green and bold. Then we get back to the red bold and the yellow highlighted black bold font. And what I would say about this is I don't mind strategically using a little bit of this. You can throw any one of these I can agree with. If you use them all, it's a Christmas tree and I don't know where to look. So, Joe, any other thoughts on that one?
No, as a guy who came up through sort of, visual communications and took a full year of typography, I'm just trying to not throw up.
They use Times Roman, right? That's your favorite font, I'm sure, and Calibri.
There you go. Yeah, and I mean, the thing is here, this is clearly a canned email that got blasted out to 1 million people, and there are times where a mass email is appropriate, but when you are trying to prospect key accounts, it's there's a lot of things wrong with this. You covered them all, Adam, and this is clearly just a terrible email. But yeah, I think when you have a limited number of accounts you're prospecting, you got to go personalized. If you have to, for one reason or another, your responsibility is to hit a ton of accounts at once. Obviously, it kind of changes, but you can do a lot better than this, right?
Quality, not quantity.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So it's easy to throw stones. So I took a shot at rewriting this for this guy. With the one nugget of knowledge is that he was referencing that he heard me on a podcast. So subject, great podcast with John Doe. Hi, Adam. I just listened to the podcast that you're on with John Doe. Great stuff. It sounds like you guys offer a cool solution for manufacturers to generate leads by leveraging their existing content. How do you find new companies that need your solution? We help you create new opportunities with targeted emails to 100,000 contacts in your sweet spot. I can show you how. Let's chat. Name. So it's not perfect, and there is no perfect, but it references something that I did or they did, that they saw that their audience did, and they sort of gave them a little compliment. And that doesn't hurt if it's genuine. I think being disingenuous reads poorly here. But you can take the time to know what their business does. And when someone sends me an email and they obviously don't know what my company even does, seriously, you're wasting your time and mine.
Mm-hmm.
Ask a question that you cannot give a yes or no answer to. That's one of the keys for me. How do you find new companies that need your solution? And I did, sometimes I'll highlight something like this if I want to jump out. I have had people take offense to it, thinking that it's a little bit too much in your face. So take that or leave it. but then there's a quick synopsis, one line of what the service is, or a general, elevator description, and then a casual closing just to keep the conversation going. You're not asking for the sale. You're not, going in for the kill. Just, I can show you how. Let's talk again.
Yep. Yeah, one thing I like how short it is, Adam. I think people don't want to read a novel, and I think I like that even better about your example here than mine previously. That I think the shorter you can do it, the better. I get a lot of, ever since I started hosting this podcast, The Manufacturing Executive, I get a lot of people reaching out who want to be guests, or people who will clearly be trying to sell me something. I'll get a LinkedIn message or an email, and they'll say, "Hey, I listened to your podcast, or I'm a listener to your podcast," and blah 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 blah, and then try to sell me on something, whether it's getting on my show or a sales call or something. I think one thing you could do here too is, from an authenticity standpoint, if you actually are going to write, I listened to your podcast with John Doe. Like, what was one little takeaway you got from that? Like, when you said this, and then write the quote down, it really resonated with me, and here's why. And then go into the next thing. Like, because people do that to me probably 1 out of 10 times, and those are the ones I reply to. Whether or not I'm going to book a call with them, it's to be determined. But those are the ones that make me immediately feel like, okay, this person's actually being authentic. They're not just recognizing that I host a podcast and then sending me a link or whatever. So
yeah, I'm sure you get more of the great podcast than the average person does too. But this is good for, did they write an article, or did they have a social post that you found enlightening, or whatever that might be. It doesn't have to be something as big as a podcast, but have something on a personal level. So Joe, let's jump to some follow-up emails.
Sure. All right, let's see here. So as far as follow-up emails go here, so I think, this applies in situations where you've had a conversation with somebody, you've booked that first call, and then, you find yourself a week later, or 3 days later, or a month later, or whatever it is for you, depending on your sales process, where you're like, okay, I got to check in. Task comes up in your CRM or whatever you use to kind of stay on top of this stuff, and then it's always like, okay, what should I say? How do I follow up with them? And the typical email subject line or the thing most people say, and I find myself even doing, I'm an offender of along these lines sometimes too, and then I have to put myself in check. Just checking in, circling back, bumping this to the top of your inbox. I mean, these are the typical ways that people follow up. It's how people follow up with me after they've had a call with me. So, hey, Mary, it's just been a few weeks since we last talked, checking in to see if you've made any decisions about how to move forward. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns, Joe. So, again, it's not like there's something wrong with this email, but I mean, this is the one that we all get all the time from people that we are all probably used to sending, and I just think there's a better way to do it. So let's go there. Here's an alternative. Subject line, this article might be helpful. Mike, great talking this week. I was thinking about the comment you made about your fill in the blank challenge, something real that you talked about in your conversation. Here's an article we wrote about that topic that I think might help, and then link to the article. So, what's going on here is you've, as opposed to just checking in, which is all about you, right? It's you trying to move to the next stage in your sales process with them. Now you're kind of flipping it around and saying, okay, how can I use every touch point with this person to create value? And it may not be linking to an article unless you've got one. Every time I get off a call, I always try to follow up. There's always some next step. I always try to follow up I sit down and I just think for 2 minutes, okay, what do I have? What were some of the things I jotted down that this person is struggling with, or they're trying to figure out, or the reason we were talking in the first place? Is there a resource that we have made, whether it's something we've written, a podcast episode, a video we filmed, a recording of a webinar like this, that I could send them that would probably address some of the questions in more depth that we only had a few minutes to touch on. And we've been at Gorilla, we've been making content for 10 plus years for manufacturers about marketing and sales, and so almost all the time there's something I could send. Other ways to do it. It doesn't have to be your content. It could be, a great article you read the other day on one of the industry sources you follow that touched on it, right? Oh, there you go. So you're a step ahead of me. I'm going to pass to you here, Adam.
No, that's right. It doesn't have to be something you wrote. And it actually has more credibility if somebody else wrote it. So exact same email that Joe had, but it's, and the subject could probably be better. I'd probably put Forbes article and then the title maybe of whatever that article is, but that's something that, hey, we're on a personal level here, or I'm trying to share something for your professional growth or help this problem. Here's something that I found out there, and you're just sharing some insightful stuff. It probably helps your entire explanation and whatever you were talking about in the first place, but it doesn't have to be something you created. You don't have to go to that work always to write that article if you don't have it. It probably exists or some version of it does.
Totally agree.
All right, so my next one is following up on a piece of content. So here's one, subject Acme number 123 ABC. So Steve, thanks for downloading the 123 ABC part model. How is this ABC 123 being used in your design? I'm available to help with the design review. If you need custom sizes, pricing, or engineering support, email or call, I'm here to help. So the idea here is it's probably a component manufacturer. They probably had a model downloaded. What do you do next? And this same thing applies to anybody that's got white papers or ebooks or case studies. Let's talk about that thing that they just did and see if you can add value. So there's a lot of manufacturers that do offer a design review, and they want to make sure that the part they're selling you is going to work for your application, and they'll work through that with you. And that's why this guy is talking about that exact part. Same thing as, if you have a ebook or case study, you can talk about, hey, did you read page 8? I thought it might be of interest to you. There's some good nuggets there that, rung true to things that we talk about at your company too.
And real quick, jumping in here, if people have questions, you're welcome to, I know Adam said this at the beginning, but drop them into the chat. We're going to come back around to them. Kyle, I saw one from you. We'll come back around to that. But yeah, please drop any questions or things as you think of them in here, and we're gonna answer them after we get through some of this content.
Perfect. All right, let's jump to the next one. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Joe?
No, I think this is good.
Excellent.
All right. So yeah, here's another one. I think over the last year or so, especially as the pandemic has set in and there's been less in-person interaction, you've seen the comfort level on tools like Zoom just skyrocket. Like the word Zoom is like Kleenex or Xerox now almost, and people who would never have gotten on a video call are doing that. And so I think that speaks to the bigger idea that technology is just becoming, like on-screen technology is just becoming so much more accessible to people and common. And maybe you're starting to see this, maybe not, but video messaging, right, is just, it's so easy to do. And if you haven't done it, it probably sounds intimidating, but I think something you could do. Here's another email example, a quick video to explain. Amy, I gave some more thought to your blank question from our conversation the other day and recorded this 3-minute video with a few additional thoughts for you. Hope this helps. And then you paste in a link using a tool. Are we going to get to tools in a minute, Adam, or should I talk about that now?
Yeah, I can hop over to that.
So we'll hold tight for 1 second. We'll talk about tools, but there are some tools that you can use that will cost you $10 a month. Some of them are probably even free, where you can just record yourself right here on screen. Click a button, start recording, copy and paste a link in. It'll create like an animated GIF that'll just play through, and your face is on it, and you could hold a sign with their name on it or whatever. But this is a great way to humanize yourself and again create some value. Like and even I love this particular message right here, because it's you're demonstrating like, hey, you have been on my mind. The thing you talked about, I thought about it a little more, and I want to build on what we talked about, and then just create value. Don't go throw your product pitch at them, but build on the conversation you have, and that kind of thing's going to resonate, especially when you can put your face on it and they can see your face and hear your voice. So Adam, you can take it from here.
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools out there, Vidyard, Loom. It's a thing that you could write the email that's 8 paragraphs long to explain this complicated thing, or you can just show somebody. So that's what Ashley in our team, she does it often. So this is Ashley sent me this. She did a little GIF down there of her waving, holding a thing up. It says my name, so I know it's to me. I feel special. And I could play this. That's all there is on this one. And it would show a little bit. That's our website. You want to show their website or their thing to know that, hey, this is about them and this is addressed to them. And somebody went through the effort to create something for you.
Yep. And so Adam mentioned a few tools there. I think you guys said you use Vidyard. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep. And then the one I typically have used, which is very similar, is Loom, LOOM.com. Vidyard is VIDYARD. Both those have great tools. There's BombBomb is another one to look at. I think they all do pretty similar things. I'm sure they've all got their own features, but I pay $10 a month for Loom, and I use it daily, not only for prospecting, but for internal communication. Think of all the long emails you write to team members, even where you're proofreading it to make sure there's not errors and stuff. Like when you record a video, it's like click, say what you need to say, copy and paste, done. So anyway, that's kind of a different application.
The barrier is getting comfortable with doing that. And I think that's the challenge that we've seen, is that people are like, oh, I made a video, now I have to edit it, and then like it has to be scripted and all that. And I think that's what these, especially in the days of Zoom now, people are a lot more comfortable with minor, it doesn't have to be polished. We're not making Jurassic Park here. This is a quick video to share, catch somebody's attention, and continue the conversation, instead of it being this arduous process edited thing.
Totally. I just dropped a link into everybody in the chat, an article I wrote a while back. It's probably a year and a half old now, I can't remember, but called Video-Based Prospecting. There's a bunch of stuff in there and links to some of these tools and things in case anybody's
we'll include that in the follow-up too.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah, so let's jump over to another email.
Awesome. All right, so let's see here. Introduction, Bill, meet, fill in the blank. So this is another way to when you're trying to think of like, how can I follow up with somebody? How can I follow up without doing something other than a just checking in email? So make an introduction to somebody. Don't force it. Again, don't force it. I've seen this done, and sometimes it's annoying when you're like, you're introducing people. And it's like, do I really need to meet this person? But there are times where, for example, like we do like demand generation and content for manufacturers. We don't do e-commerce at Gorilla. And sometimes my conversations in a sales setting will revolve around somebody who just really needs help on the e-commerce front. And I've got a few people that I trust who are experts in that, or other agencies. And so sometimes the best follow-up, even if, and I'm not just saying to end the conversation, but like there are plenty of times where there's an opportunity, but this person also needs e-commerce. And so I'll just go make that intro and say, hey, Bill, you mentioned blank on our call. I want to introduce you to fill in the blank. He's a pro on this topic. I can't think of anyone better to answer questions about it. You don't have to be the solution for everything. In fact, in cases where you do this and you can introduce someone, you earn trust and credibility in the mind of the recipient from my experience. You get thanked for this. They look at, it says immediately, wow, this person has my best interests in mind. They're not just trying to take my money and every penny I have to spend. And often these, by doing this, it's going to turn into a better relationship and maybe even a bigger deal for you at some point, because you've earned their trust. So I'm sure you all have your own versions of where this could apply, but it's just something to consider. If you just always focus on how can I help this person achieve what they're trying to achieve, and just keep that at the front of your mind, you're going to think of all sorts of different ways to do that. This is just one of those ways.
Yeah, I mean, we've done this in the past for, somebody needs a referral, or, if somebody doesn't believe that we can do what we can do, and here you go, take it, don't take it from me, talk to one of our current customers or whatever that might be. And that you have a customer that would vouch for you is a pretty big thing, and that they would connect you with somebody, that it builds trust all around. So, all right, 6 takeaways. So first is spend time on the subject. I don't want to say it should take as long as the rest of the email to write, but it shouldn't not take that long. So spend the time on the subject, make it good. Have a clear ask. If you don't know what you're emailing about, neither does your audience. So make sure it's obvious and clear. And formatting matters. Obviously, the email that I shared was a formatting nightmare, but even take the time to just make a pass by it, consider your audience, and improve it.
Yeah, one little add there. If any of you guys have, you know, on a Mac, I use text edit, like the program text edit comes embedded, and you can do like format, make plain text. I always just, if I am copying and pasting something, like just strip the formatting away before you paste it in your email, right?
And Notepad is on PC, yeah. Same thing.
The worst is sometimes it appears right on your screen, but after you hit send, it'll actually show up different on the recipient's end, depending on their email client. And so I think that's just a good practice to get into. If you're copying and pasting, the worst thing is when you get an email and it's different sizes and fonts and things, and it wasn't intentional that you sent it that way, but it happens. And so anyway, just a small build on that one.
Love it. This is yours, Joe.
Yeah, connect to the pain or goal fast. Why should they care? You know, we talked about this one earlier. Do it in your subject line, because you know, if you want somebody to open your email, you know, it needs to be about them and what they care about. So again, as long as you're focused, you understand who your audience is and what they care about, which you should, then get to the pain. Don't talk about yourself. Talk about the issue they're probably experiencing or potentially experiencing, or the thing you know they're trying to achieve, and go there first. Never just check in. You know, you look at every check-in or follow-up emails as an opportunity to create value in some way. Put the thing your prospect is trying to achieve at the forefront, and just think, how can I create value and help them get closer to where they're trying to go? And then know the audience and personalize to them. So the, you know, Milwaukee Bucks example earlier, right? Or Adam mentioned, you know, this person shares your alma mater, or they're, you know, they've got some common connection or a common interest that you've observed on looking at them on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever. You use that information to your advantage. Don't force fit it. Be authentic, but look for opportunities to, you know, humanize yourself by making a personal connection.
Excellent. So I have one bonus thing to add on here, which is I made for my team an email creation checklist, and it's not practical to use it on every email, but after you think about it a couple times, it should become second nature. It seems obvious, but the idea here is make a speed bump. If you can't address all of these things, you probably shouldn't send an email to this person. If you don't address some of these things, you're probably sending a bad email. So this is sort of a litmus test for how should I proceed? So who is the person? Do you know their name, and are you addressing the email to this person's name? What is their title? What do they do with the company? Because what you're talking about could be vastly different. Like Joe said in his early email, is this the CFO? Is this the engineering manager? What interests them are vastly different. What does the company do? If you're not addressing it in the email, you should at least have a clear understanding of what they do, because how else can you help them? What's the interesting nugget about them? Did you do a little research to find out if they're a Bucks fan, or where they went to school, or what that thing might be? It doesn't have to be a ton of research, but find something common ground to talk about that's not the thing you're trying to sell them. What is the point of this message? So is there one thing about your solution or whatever that you're trying to share, and keep it to that, plus or minus, you know, but it doesn't, if you have a bulleted list that's 6 points, 5 probably got to go. Engage. What is your how, what, why question that you're going to start the conversation with them with? And this cannot be a question that gives you a yes or no answer. It can be, but you're not going to get the result that you want. And then what is the ask? And no, you can't just ask for the sale or the demo, because that's cheating and it doesn't ever work. This is a conversation starter, and you're just looking for permission to continue the conversation. So again, it's not practical to use this on everyone, but if you're not doing these things, you might be in trouble. And with that, we can jump to the questions.
Awesome. Let's go to, I want to go to Kyle Smythe first. Kyle, you were the first one to drop one in early on. You'd asked, do you recommend writing with the understanding that most emails are opened on a phone? So yes, I think absolutely. You know, everything has shifted so much to mobile in recent years. Adam, I want to hear your take on this, but I think from my perspective, it's just that much more of a reason to try to keep it short and sweet. Like, frankly, some of my examples I used here, like the Milwaukee Bucks one we referenced a few times, like it was probably a touch long, honestly. Like, Adam, yours was very short and sweet. So yeah, I think that's a really smart point and a good consideration. Like, people are opening emails on a phone, and you should be able to get some of this data from your whatever you're using for email. But shortened to the point is that much better. So I don't know if that answers your question, Kyle, but
where is Kyle's? Is Kyle's first on the list, or maybe you?
Unless Kyle, you may have sent it directly to me. I'm not really sure.
Okay, cool. So it says, I agree. I think I spend, and my team spends a lot of time pulling words out of things, and clarity comes with being concise. And so the less, you want to have, I would rather have 10 conversations with you of 10 words each than just send you 100 words in an email and hope that you're going to understand all of those things in there. So I think this also speaks to the one in the US, brief emails tend to be better. What's your experience with other cultures outside of the US? I think that it depends. I think, there are cultures where they prefer to both send and receive the long version, and they use it as this reference document, and they come again and again. I do think they're coming our way, or the American style it is fairly obvious and relevant around the world now. So I think a lot of them are coming our way. We are an international company, and much of our international communication, we try to be short and concise. The other nice part about that is less things are confused in translation. That's where, if you got 10 words and you run it through Google Translate or whatever that might be, you can see, oh, okay, I got to do a little polish up there. When you wrote War and Peace, it's a little bit harder to edit.
And I don't have anything to add to that one. I honestly, my audience is 90%, really more than that, probably 95% American B2B manufacturers. I just don't really have a lot of experience doing international marketing. So
yeah, I saw one. I'm seeing these are moving on me here. So how about this one, Joe? You want to take this one? When does personalization go too far that the receiver sees it as creepy, i.e. you get too personal with info on their background or common ground?
Yeah, so I don't know how many of you are on this call are HubSpot users or Pardot or whatever, some marketing automation software, but like the information we can collect about people that are opening our emails, and in particular when somebody's filled out a form on your site, now you can see every time they come back and what pages they're looking at. Like I think it goes too far when you're probably hey, I noticed you visited this page and this page and this page on our site, which would lead me to believe that you probably are having a problem with this or this or this. Do you want to use that information to think strategically about how to approach someone and how to maybe frame a conversation? Sure, but I wouldn't drop all that stuff into an email, right? So I don't know.
Don't talk about where they went on vacation or their kids' names, or those, if you could, Facebook or whatever, you can learn from somebody. Yeah, it's definitely, you could go too far quickly.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like, what do you, if it's something on their LinkedIn profile, it's like, hey, I saw you post this, or I noticed that you're connected to this person or something. I think that all that stuff's totally fair game. But yeah, digging into their vacation photos on Facebook, like, going too deep on the content that you've observed them consuming, I think that's when it probably goes a little bit too far. So that's my take.
I don't think it helps you either. I think it's not showing your hand, but it's kind of showing your hand, like the tactics you use, and people don't always like that. I think it's a little bit off-putting.
Yeah, I mean, the way you can use some of that information though, like, let's say somebody was on my site and they were all over, we'll just use this as an example. Let's say, somebody next week's like, they go watch this webinar on my site, and they read that prospecting email, the one that some of these screenshots were pulled from, and they read about the the link I dropped in the chat earlier, the video-based prospecting article, and other things related to that. Well, you could probably deduce that they're trying to learn how to do email marketing or prospecting better. And so, like you could probably approach a conversation with them with that in mind, without saying, hey, we help a lot of companies figure out how to do email marketing better, and whatever, fill in the blank, as opposed to, hey, I noticed you watched this webinar and read this article and then read this article. It's like, okay, you're stalking me, right? So use the information, but use it in a way that it doesn't feel like you're being a little overly intrusive.
Yeah, I think if they fill out a form for a thing, it's a little bit more obvious. They're like, yep, I'm kind of raising my hand here, and you can talk to them about that thing that they filled out a form for, but I wouldn't go super deeper than that, or what they have on their LinkedIn page and that. So how about the next one from Brian? Personalizing emails are great. I agree, they help build the relationship more directly. On a larger scale, with time sensitivity of more canned emails, what do you recommend? Short, sweet, and to the point, question mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a few thoughts from me on this topic of when you do can an email, because most of us do it in some capacity, and there's a big difference between the one Adam had up on screen with all the yellow and green highlights and all that stuff, and doing it well. Yes, I think short and sweet and to the point is better. I mean, you're not inserting all the things about, hey, I noticed we have this in common, and I noticed you did this and this and this on, you posted this stuff or whatever, because you don't, if it's canned, it's not going to be that personalized. So I think the way you can still personalize it or make it relevant to the recipient is by really tightly defining that ideal customer profile and who this particular set of emails is for. Like, I'm not going to send me as an industrial marketing guy, I'm not going to send an email that includes a link to a tutorial about how to do keyword research to a whole bunch of CEOs of manufacturing facilities, but I will send that to marketing directors, because that's part of their job, right? So I think think about, from a personalization standpoint, when you are doing some kind of mass email, just understand that ideal customer profile and who that persona is that's receiving this, as opposed to like the blast email that just goes to anybody from fill in the blank type of company.
Yeah, I also want to make sure we're not confusing terms, because like a newsletter is different from a canned email. It's going to the whole list, but the newsletter is sort of it's its own animal, and that's probably and we actually had a little bit of that in here, and we pulled that out because it starts to spiral and become its own thing. But canned emails, if you're sending it and it looks like it's coming from you, I mean, there's a time and a place for it, but I think I would try to do it to a minimum and try to find that happy medium of how to personalize it for the group.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't work in like for software companies, right? Like in the SaaS world, where it's you're selling especially when you're selling a lower priced product, like there's probably a lot more of this that goes on. But with a lot of my clients and the people I consult, it's mid-sized manufacturers selling, they're the custom machine builders, or they're selling, some kind of CapEx equipment, or even if they're a contract manufacturer or something, they are selling bigger deals, and like you're going to be better off writing 5 or 10 really personalized, high quality emails that are going to resonate with somebody than sending 100 canned ones that all say the same thing. You're just going to get more out of that. So I agree with that. I think you need to differentiate between a sales email or a prospecting email and one that is more of it has a nurturing intent, and we're just kind of creating value consistently over time, like some of you who are on this who get our Guerrilla newsletter every other Wednesday morning. It's just pure trying to share insights and things that matter to you and in your job. So
they should all subscribe, by the way. It's one of the few that I regularly read. Yeah, shout out. How about when you send resources in a cold or follow-up email, do you include the raw, full, ugly link, or do you edit it to show like a clean hypertext over words?
I always highlight the words
Okay.
and then I click the link. I never drop the URL in personally. I don't know. There's not a science behind that made me, make that decision. It's just, yeah, it's ugly. Like Ashley said here, if you can just highlight the words and then click the link button, then it reads right in line. You'll link the words that actually reference the thing that you're linking to. So that's how I personally do it. I don't know. What do you do, Adam?
Well, it depends. If I know the person, but it's one of those things, I don't necessarily trust a link when I click it and it comes into my email. So if I see where it's going and I can hold my mouse over it and it matches what I see, sometimes that makes me feel a little better, and that's what I do. I'll send out a link. Now, when it's the one that's like three feet long with the UTM codes and all those other things, I might try to clean up some of that junk off there, but it's a personal preference thing. We have things like in our newsletter and things when I highlight text and I'll put that in, but there's a lot of times I'll put the ugly link in there intentionally and someone will they'll actively see it's a link, but also I think it's a little bit more trustworthy, but open to the debate on that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I never thought about that. Reading the words that are in the actual URL might actually encourage click through. So, and if you are pasting something in and it's got one of those, like question mark and then there's an UTM code and it's this long string, like you can usually chop that stuff off. Test your link before you paste it back and make sure it works. But sometimes that's a simple solve to make it look a little more clean.
Yeah, along the same lines.
There were a few I think we might have that came in prior to. I'm looking at one from let's see here, from Himanshu. It's possible some of these just came to go back to. So what should be included in a cold email to a prospect for the first time? So I'm assuming that what we're talking about here is you've never made contact with this person, and so I think that, in my opinion, that's kind of what a lot of this webinar was really about. It's there's a lot of people here who are responsible for making touch with people for the first time who don't know them. It's a prospecting situation, and I think that's kind of the stuff we were talking about here. It's like, look for a way to create value for them, to focus on them, not you, prior to talking about yourself, keeping it short and sweet. I don't know, Adam, any adds on that?
Yeah, this is really the underlying message of the whole thing. I think you need to, it's the resource. It's like telling somebody what color to paint their house. I can't tell you this because I don't know what you like. You have to go and do the effort to learn about them, what they need, and what's going to speak to them. And it's like I said up front, it's all about the effort. It's all about what you know about them. There's no silver bullet to this. It's effort based.
Yeah, cool. All right, where do we leave off, Adam?
I think somebody's picking on you about the Milwaukee thing a little bit in here.
Mike, Joe, on your first good email regarding Milwaukee, good example, but I wouldn't have mentioned Nuggets. Is in the Denver Nuggets, I assume, and would have emphasized it. You would save them $1. All right, I like to play on words there. So good stuff. Where are we at here, Adam?
Is there a word limit to an email writing? No,
okay.
But yeah, I'm way down there. I'm at the VJ one where he left.
Yep.
Do you try to keep it on I think, I can tell you that because all of we do press releases monthly or so, and those are 500 words, and that's a full page of written double-spaced copy, and that's too much. So,
I don't
know, 150, 200 words somewhere in there. If it should be a paragraph. I'd keep it 3 or 4 sentences max with a bullet or a bold thing in there maybe. And do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in terms of word limit, I'm having trouble like thinking of what that would be. I'm going to think of it in terms of sentences. Yeah, I think I think in an ideal world, it's probably like 3 to 5 sentences. Communicate what you want to communicate as simply as possible. My business partner John's a journalism guy, and he came up through his first job. His creative director is the last thing he always talks about. It's like anytime he wrote anything and would bring it to her before it got approved, she would say, okay, sounds good, go cut it in half. And then he'd cut it and he'd come back, she'd say, cut it in half again. He'd be like, what? And she'd do that like 3 times. And then by the time he was done with it, he'd look at the first and last draft and say, yeah, I mean, this first draft didn't really communicate anything essential that's missing from the final piece. So people don't want to read long emails. You know, they're getting too many of them. So as far as guidelines, I don't know if I have a specific number. I'm sure there is some science out there and people who are, one person I'd recommend, I'll throw this out there, some of you may know who he is, if any of you are active on LinkedIn, go look up Josh Braun, B-R-A-U-N. This guy is the master of cold outreach. His stuff is just incredible. He does really good stuff around cold calling, but I bet you he's got a more scientific answer to this. He's not a manufacturing specific person at all, but he's got a lot of great stuff about this if you want to get into the details of how to do some of this stuff. So
yeah, I know as far as cut it in half and cut it in half again, a friend and marketing mentor of mine used to review our stuff, and every sentence I would write, he'd say, so what? And if you can't say the so what to every sentence, and it's a brutal test, you know, you start,
yeah,
you know, about 4 so what's in, it's like, oh gosh, that was prose right there. That was good stuff. But it's unnecessary. Yeah. And so you got to be willing to ask that of your own content.
Sure.
You see other one, is it better to include attachments or links to a URL or a document?
My understanding is that best practice is to avoid attachments. Like they tend to, you know, get you flagged as spam. People are hesitant to open attachments from people they don't know often. You know, I'm not really, I'm a little out of my element speaking to this, but like, I don't really send attachments, but you know, I think there's a perception, whether it's true or not, that attachments may be more likely to come along with some kind of virus, and so I think, and it's also just another thing to open. You know, it's another click, and so you know, it's going to download, and then you have to open the file. So I think the simpler you can make it, and the easier you make something to get to, I think the better. That's my take.
I agree. Every time I get an email from someone I don't know with an attachment, I'll reply and I'll say, like, what is this, or is this real? Almost every single time they're like, sorry, got hacked. And it's, you know, I'm not, so that average isn't helping me want to click any attachments from people I don't know.
Totally. And let's go back up to Rebecca. This one was from a little earlier.
Yeah.
Rebecca, what are your thoughts on automating follow-up emails? Should it be done? It's a great question. I've gone back and forth over the years on how to use automation in my process. The only places where I use automation at this point anymore are, I think there actually is only one. I think you know, this is just one use case, but when somebody subscribes to our newsletter, I kick them into a very short, I think 2 to 3 email sequence that is, you know, thanks for subscribing, would love to hear, you know, these are the challenges we see for manufacturers on the marketing front, bullet, like, do any of these apply to you? And if so, let me know, and I'll try to point you in the right direction on some of that stuff. And then I try to reply to those with a thoughtful response, and that's manually typed, or I'll send them some more links if they say, yeah, I'm struggling with this thing. So I think that's a good application, like a welcome email into, you know, your newsletter. But that's also kind of a different situation than a lot of what we're talking about today, which is more sales emails. I personally would avoid any sort of automation if you're doing some kind of personalized sales approach. You know, if you're responsible for massive amounts of people, you know, then you may need to apply some of that stuff. But I'm always looking to personalize this stuff. I think having starter scripts can be fine, like as long as you then personalize them. Like in HubSpot, I use HubSpot Sales. We use HubSpot Sales and HubSpot Marketing. But in HubSpot Sales, I've got a lot of those sorts of emails that are queued up as you know, responses or follow-ups or things like that. But you know, I use them and I open an email with that as my starter, and then I go modify it accordingly so that I'm not just, you know, it just avoids like having to think through it every time. So I almost am a fan of like merging some automated elements with a level of personalization. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, we do them for content downloads when someone downloads an ebook or a survey report. Partially that's to get the email deliverable of it, and we make it a nice clean one-to-one email. They come from me. a lot of times I would send that same exact email to people and they get it faster and they get what they need right away, and it saves me a couple steps. We don't do them for all things. The nice thing is I know I usually have a question or a conversation starter in there that's kind of generic, but when people reply to that, especially for certain, I know like it elevates it a level for me, particularly on a couple conversions that we have. I ask a couple questions about their company just to learn and help make sure they get connected with the right person. And when they reply to that, it's like, oh, okay, this is a real person with a real need, and it helps move it up a little bit. It is a fairly generic email, but it is addressed to them. It's delivering the thing they just downloaded. And so it's sort of a happy medium there in between the two.
Yep.
I saw another one here.
Let me ask this one here, because I might need some clarification that maybe Thane, Freiberg, any approach Delta on services, supply chain management versus product offerings. I need more clarification on what's being asked, unless you're following that one, Adam.
I'm not, unless it just means, should we send a different kind of email if they're a services company or a products company? If that's the question, I think no. I mean, make it about your customer and what they need and how you can help them, and use these same tricks that we've been talking about. But I think the basic rules apply, unless there's something else there in which she can clarify.
Yeah. Feel free to jump back in there and repose that with a little more detail. I want to make sure you get your good question answered.
How about, if you're not getting a response, how long do you typically wait before sending another email? And to me, that would be, how many emails have you already sent? And what are you following up about? And what has been the process so far? Because something is not working. And maybe you need to slow down and pivot either with your message or the person you're communicating to. Do you have permission really from them to communicate? And if you've already sent them 10 emails this month, I would probably pause for like a month or maybe more than that. Joe?
Yeah. So I'm going to operate under answering this question. I'm going to make the assumption that like the types of emails you're sending follow some of the rules we've laid out here. Some of the recommendations we've laid out about creating value and personalization, and speaking to issues and pains and objectives of the audience as opposed to talking about yourself. Those ones I think are gonna, if you're doing that, they're not gonna get worn out as fast probably as if you're just sending typical sales emails, trying to book a call and talking about your product or your services. So as far as how you space them out, like if you're writing under the rules we've been talking about here, I would probably like start out with you send the first one and maybe another one goes out 3 business days later, and then maybe it's 3 more, and then it's 5 days, and then it's 5 days. But I think there are just a lot of factors here. I think it depends on, like, are you selling something that is very complex and a longer sales cycle? Are you also sending emails to, like, is this an account-based approach where you're sending this string of emails to a person with this job title and this string to the person with another? Are they opening the emails? Let's look at that data. If they're opening them and then clicking them multiple times, that shows some engagement, and you probably want to take that into consideration. Maybe there's probably just depends on how much information you can gather. Do we know what they're clicking through to on our site, and are they coming back to that content? That just might indicate higher levels of engagement, maybe indicate some level of buying intent, even depending on what content they're looking at. So I think you kind of need to look at all that stuff. But if it's just straight up cold emails, you don't have a lot of information about how they're interacting with them, or they're just kind of falling flat, I don't think you want to keep bombarding people. I'd probably lean into spacing them out a little bit more, maybe 1 a week. So I think there's a lot of variables there. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I would say, well, one of the things that I've seen is sometimes it looks like people are opening your emails, and that's how their spam filter works. So the analytics you have may be off, and I would look into that. You might be going to spam, in which case I pick up the phone. I've had it where it's people that is a friend, and somehow I've got on their spam filter. I've sent them 10 emails. I'm like, what is going on here? Icing me out. And there's a IT type thing. I'm on the blacklist, or accidentally he clicked spam for me, and you got to get manually taken off of there. So make sure that you're not on the spam block, but that's one of those things. Maybe it's time to pick up the phone or try a different tactic.
Mm-hmm. What else we got here?
I think that's all that I see. I did kind of jump around.
Just looking back through them here, making sure we didn't skip over any. Anybody else got questions they want to drop in before we wrap it? I think we hit them all.
Yeah, awesome.
Type something into the chat if you posed a question that didn't get answered, but I think we got them all.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam. Thanks for organizing. It's a great topic. Anybody here is welcome to reach out to me. Adam, I'm sure the same goes to you with any kind of follow-ups that didn't get answered here or need some advice on some of this stuff. So.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll have a follow-up email with Joe's info in there, mine, and some of these attachments in the next day or so.
We'll get the recording out to the group too as well. Okay,
yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Good.
Perfect.
Well, thank you all for joining.
All right. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Yep, you bet. We'll see you.
All right. Yeah, bye.